Not just our cities that are in a state of decay. It's a big focus of ours today. We're going around the country, as you'll see if you stay with us throughout today. We're going to be going from Johannesburg, Cape Town, KZN, all the provinces, just about getting a sense of what our cities look like at the moment and what they should be looking like. Here is another very important talking point, though. The lack of infrastructure and decaying state of our cities. It puts our prisons into a state of disrepair. But what does that mean for the prisoners and the staff who work there? Well, the Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services has found inhumane conditions, and that is just some of the critique that's been levelled against poor prison infrastructure. Well, let me bring into the conversation, what a pleasure to have him with us, Justice Edwin Cameron, making time for us this morning. Justice, good morning to you, and it's so good to have you back on ENCA with us. Taking a look at that opinion piece, not exactly highlighting a pristine view of our prisons. How bad do you think it is? Good morning.
That's right, Gareth, and good morning to you and to the ENCA viewers. Very pleased to be able to speak to you about this. May I say as a starter, Gareth, that those pictures of ablutions that your viewers were watching just a moment ago are much better than anything I've seen recently. Most ablutions in most prison cells that I've visited are in a terrible state, and that's not to use exaggerated language. But going back one or two steps, you refer to my opinion piece. The real point it makes is dysfunction, not on the part of the prison service, because we are their allies in trying to get proper maintenance and repairs and construction done on prison sites. The real sinners here are the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. They get requests, they get logged calls, they get logged complaints, and many times they just don't respond. There are doubtless many virtuous, hard-working officials in DPWI, but they're not giving their attention sufficiently to prisons, and the result is, as you've indicated, appalling.
So where do you get the sense then, Justice, that the first call that needs to be made as far as responsibility is concerned, DPWI, the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, or DCS, Department of Correctional Services? Who, to your mind, should be taking the lead here, looking at the problem and then trying to address it? Who should actually be doing that?
I've not yet met a correctional official who isn't deeply concerned, like we are at JIX, the Judicial Inspectorate, about the decaying infrastructure and the disgraceful, often, conditions in which we hold prisoners. We require prisons personnel to keep prisoners on our behalf. And of course, the decaying infrastructure, the gaps in the roofs, the cracks, the mildew, the leaking taps, the absence of hot water, they affect the operational employment conditions of prisons officials as well. So undoubtedly, answering your questions, it's the Department of Public Works. All but relatively trivial repairs have to be referred to DPWI, and then the wait starts, and then often there's no ensuing feedback from them.
Yeah, you call it an often dead-end bureaucratic arrangement. Also in your article, Justice, I was about to ask you, before I saw the amount, if there's enough money to get this done, but you've cited the amount of over 8 billion rand. You're calling it a big fat budget for DPWI. So there is money here, which has to make you wonder, why is it not being done?
There is money, Gareth, and you know, this is not a cheap point. It's an important point. There's money for generators for every minister's house. I'm not making an envious point. This is a fact that DPWI can get its butt into gear and spring into action when it's required to do so. So ministers' houses are refurbished, ministers' houses have fresh curtain rails, ministers' houses have generators. You would remember you also gave attention some months ago to Deputy Judge President Roland Sutherland, who spoke about the dysfunction in the generator at the Johannesburg High Court, the busiest high court in the country. So this is a generalized problem of DPWI output, Gareth. And one of the problems is political leadership, who in the cabinet is busy chasing down the officialdom in the Department of Public Works. And the second problem has been highlighted also in studies, which is that there is this mad succession of acting directors general, of discipline directors general, of SAC directors general, of moved sideways directors general in too many government departments. It's not only the Public Works Department. They've had this succession, and it has hobbled their efficiency, it has hobbled their loyal service, it has hobbled their output.
I picked up a very worrying section of your opinion piece, Justice. I want to talk about the prison in Stanger. If memory serves me correctly, decrepit, I think, is the word that you use. What stands out for me more worryingly, and tell me if I'm interpreting this correctly, is the roofing consisting of degrading asbestos. Is that what we're looking at in 2023? We have roofs with asbestos in it.
Correct, Gareth. And you know, when I was still a student in the 70s, we already knew that asbestos was a danger. It was the miracle material. You could mix it with cement. You could do anything with it, garden furniture, roofs. And we then realized that even a fragment of asbestos can cause a terrible lung mesothelioma and other lung diseases. So we are exposing both the warders, both the personnel at Stanger Prison and the inmates. And as I say in the article, that roof is so bad that they've removed all the beds from Stanger Prison because the inmates could stack the beds and make their way out of the prison through the degraded roof. May I just slip in there, Gareth, that Port Shepstone, which my colleagues at JIX visited, I wasn't there personally, there we declared that this structure is not fit for human habitation. We recommended that the Port Shepstone prison be evacuated and be fixed before we put any personnel or any prisoners back in there. So it's a terrible thing, Gareth. I don't believe that has been done at Port Shepstone. It may have been done in the last few days since I wrote the article, but I do not believe it's been done. And this is a reflection on all of us. We are all scared. I'm sitting here, you in your studio, your listeners in their homes or where they're watching. We're all scared of crime. We're all angry about violent crime. But this is not the way to deal with it. There are better, more efficient ways of dealing with crime than subjecting those that we sentence for crime to degrading conditions.
Justice, I'll start saying goodbye to you in a moment. I want to get a sense, though, I can see some of the critique to your article is going to be the age-old argument. You've obviously been doing this a very long time. I've been around a fair amount of time as well. I'm going to hear the word overcrowding being thrown down as a possible reason for this, and it's overcrowding because of our justice system, our correctional services system. We aren't convicting quickly enough. All we're doing is arresting and holding prisoners. Let me just give you a chance then to get ahead of that particular argument, because I feel that's going to be the critique coming out of our discussion.
Absolutely, Gareth, and I appreciate your raising that point. 33%. We have prisons built for the construction capacity of all our prisons, about 240 nationwide, is just over 100,000 people. How many do we have? 150,000, of whom 1/3 are waiting trial prisoners. Some of them have been there for several years. So we've got this terrible mix. And again, I make the point, my focus is on the dignity of inmates whom we incarcerate. But we also put the personnel at risk by overcrowding them in that way. Now, we have to go back a step, Gareth, and before you draw us to the end, I'd be grateful if I could make this point. We've made a wrong turn on sentencing. We need to invest in crime intelligence, to find the Zama kingpins, not the Zama operators, to find the cash and transit house kingpins. Often, unfortunately, they'll be in high political or police office. That's what we need to do. Police follow-up work, CID, detective work, and then a justice system that needs resources, as Deputy Judge President Roland Sutherland has indicated. Instead of which, we're taking a tiny minority of offenders. At the moment, this is a terrible figure. 14% of murders are followed up in South Africa. 86% of murders, and we've got 70 murders a day in South Africa, do not get followed up. So we're taking a tiny minority of perpetrators and subjecting them to horrendous conditions. Now, that's not logical, it's not just, it's not constitutional, it's nothing. We should rethink. We've got to root back from that wrong turn, and there are better ways for all of us as dignified South Africans to do this job.
Justice Edwin Cameron, I'm going to say thank you very much, sir, for your time this morning.